everyone. I cannot tell you how awesome it is to be here in Kuala Lumpur. This is a dream. This is a true testament to what you think about can become your reality and can actually happen even so much more quickly than you can even imagine. It's been, quite a while that I have been sitting and watching videos like this and the colored bean bags and, imagining this place. And so to be here today is very, very special. I'll share a quick personal story. Actually, about a month ago, I was hosting an event in Sydney, and I saw Ajit on this stage, and it looked so cool. And I literally sent the photograph to my photographer and my husband, who's my CEO, and I was like, I want our stuff to look this cool, and I want it to, and literally a month later, here I am, and here we are. So the manifesting powers are certainly high, and there's no possibly better place that I could think about talking about the subject of being great than here at Mindvalley and all that Mindvalley stands for. What I'm so excited about this subject is for a couple of reasons. One, that entelechy within all of us to be great, it's our natural heritage. It's our natural right. It's like the entelechy of the oak tree of the acorn is to become the oak tree, and the entelechy of the embryo is to become the baby. And each of us are so meant for greatness, and yet for many of us in our cultures or religions or places where we come from, we've been taught to kind of scale it down, to be put in our place, to just stay put. And yet those of us who are entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs, we're constantly getting out of the box and constantly trying to thrive and grow, yet pretty constantly given subliminal messages of it's not okay to be all that, it's not okay to make that much money, it's not okay to stand out. And so we find ourselves in this sort of tug of war. So tonight I just really want to anchor in and start with what it means for you to be great. And for you to allow yourself to own, as taboo as it might be, depending on any conditioning, what does it feel like and what does it mean for you to be great? And though when you step into that and really own that energy for yourself and own your greatness, and you probably feel it secretly inside yourself anyways, but when you get that, and you get what you're doing for yourself, and you get how, when you own that, that's going to have you be living your best life. The other thing that's really, really important for you to anchor into as well is the collective vortex that you're creating. It is not a coincidence at all who is here in this room tonight. And whether you know the other people here or not, and for those of you watching the video, it's not a coincidence at all that there is literally an energetic field and a collective vortex by you being here, taking a stand for your greatness and literally changing the fabric of the communication in the world on this mentality that shuns greatness. That by the fact that you're here, by the fact that you're claiming your own, and you're not just off watching something by yourself, but that you're here in this room is an added power that I want you to claim and anchor into. So for whatever you're meant to receive here, whatever ideas, nuggets, inspiration, ahas, know that it's going to be exponential because of the collective vortex that all of you are contributing, yes, to yourselves, but to people that you may not even realize that you're contributing to as well. So I just want to start with a little bit of a personal story for those of you who perhaps don't know about my journey. I'm a school teacher's kid from Detroit, Michigan. I grew up not with a very, I wasn't super poor and I wasn't super rich, and we were just sort of normal. And I think so much of my path from this very well-meaning family and community and so much of who I've become has been kind of busting out of this mediocrity. I was taught, go to college, get a job, everything was fine, everything was normal, it was all so appropriate. And yet the little girl in me who dreamed of something more, who desired for a great lifestyle and to be a really big player in the world, I just didn't come from a community that really, really fueled that notion. And So I sold out and I self-betrayed at different parts along the way. And for me, selling out was going to college. I didn't even want to go to college, but I was told you go to college and you get a job. And so here I am, the creator of Divine Living, who's interested in traveling the world, going to undergraduate school in Kalamazoo, Michigan, right? Because it was a state school and because I wanted to go to Boston University, but that was too expensive. So, you know, the ways in which I self-abandoned for thinking that I was being responsible or doing the right thing. And all the people along the path who encouraged that, they weren't not well-meaning, but they thought that this was what was doing best for me. And I think that for those of us who are allowing ourselves the entrepreneurial path, we can really get and understand this vortex and this container defies mediocrity in every level of the world. There is nothing contained about entrepreneurialism. And when you use this beautiful container for you to live your own most unlimited life, you actually become who you came here to be, and you are supported in it. You know, in the world of entrepreneurs, there are no limits. I was watching a documentary on the mentality of billionaires on my way here, and to see what people are doing genuinely, not in the pursuit of money, but in the pursuit of who they came here to be and what those endeavors are, there's just no limitation. And when we really get as entrepreneurs that we can be, do, and have literally anything that we desire. You know, I've heard that as long as I've been studying entrepreneurialism. I've owned my own business for about 8 years now. I used to be Jason gave some of the funner parts of my resume, but I also used to be a broke, struggling psychotherapist because there were a couple dark night of the soul moments and in my life, and I didn't know what to do with myself, and I had been going to therapy about 3 times a week. For long enough, I needed to do something with my life, so the next thing I could do is become a therapist. And so I got to have an excuse to get a master's degree in clinical psychology to work on myself, which seemed pretty productive and kept me hidden at the time. All of that to say is I did write my master's thesis on living life unlimitedly. And when I really saw where people cap themselves and where people let themselves fly. And, you know, having been a very hardworking, well-educated, well-meaning, so excited to change myself and change the world, but being stuck in a $24,000 a year position, living in the United States, working 75 hours a week, I felt more like a slave than being in service to me or anyone else. And when I found the path, the true path of entrepreneurialism, and I started studying wealth consciousness, and everything started to open up. And it might sound a little bit cliche that you can be, do, and have anything that you want, because I've heard that for years. But when you really get it, when you really own it, that there doesn't need to be any concern about money or the creation of it, because money is currency and currency is energy, so wherever you give your energy, there's where your money will be. And when you really get that there are more than enough clients in the world for you, there are 7 billion people on this planet. Like the years that I went through literally terrorizing myself, where's my next client gonna come from? Where's my next client gonna come from? Like going to networking meetings, like being this like, it must be you, you know, like her, you know, Amex, anyone? You know, like it's like you start stalking people, like there's like scarcity in who can be your next client when they're really, when you allow yourself to get the truth that what you seek is seeking you. And every client that you desire to work with and every innovative thought that you have or any book you want to write or TV show you want to get, like whatever your deal is, whatever your gig is, if you spend your time and your focus and your emotion on creating and manifesting that, there isn't anything that can stop you. It's kind of like freaking out about, like, let's say you wanted to learn French, and it's like, oh my God, what if I can't learn French? What if I can't learn French? It's like, Yeah, you have to work at it. Yes, you have to keep repeating it. Yes, you have to keep practicing. Maybe you get a tutor. You keep working at it, but it's not going to not happen. And I think that for so long, when I doubted my own greatness, is when I was just naive to how the world works and naive to what this beautiful entrepreneurial path actually sets up for us, that it's actually screaming, we want you, we need you, like the world is craving you. And people might not understand you because your dream and your calling and your mission is uniquely yours. So when we get these ideas and these whispers in our heart about, well, like, can I really do this? Or can I really make that much money? Or can I really sell out that program? Or can I really get this many people in the programs? Or get the book deal? Or whatever that dream is. And then you go and you ask someone who, like, that's not their dream or their calling or anything that they get. And they're like, I don't know, it's really hard, you know. And you let your dream die from somebody who wasn't given it. So hold on to those dreams that you have because they were only given to you. Just in case you think everybody is a visionary, they're not. Like, if you're surrounding yourself with other visionaries, it's because you are one. But your vision is special and it's unique and it's needed, of course, in a way that only you can provide and do. And of course, your whole life path was literally designed for this very moment. It was literally designed for you to be manifesting your next dream and your next purpose. And I think that when you actually allow the path of entrepreneurialism to develop you, that's what it's really about. Yes, making the money is awesome, and yes, selling out your programs are super cool, but why I love working with entrepreneurs so much, particularly around making money, it's because of who they become in the process. And that's what I know, you know, this school teacher's kid from Detroit who was insecure, though I didn't realize I was, by the way. I was always pretty outgoing and friendly. I didn't realize how afraid I was to really be visible in the world and like raise my hand and claim my worth and charge certain rates and truly be a leader. And I always say, if you want the best personal development seminar on the planet, start your own business. Because of who you become in that process, you'll really see what parts of you have been so conditioned that you were afraid to charge your worth, or you were afraid to stand up for yourself, or you were afraid to confront something, or afraid to not be perfect. You know, all of these things. I hear the same thing happens in motherhood for anybody who's a mother, but I'm not one, so my clients are my kids, and my business has been that mirror. And when you really get that everything that's not you starts to fall away, and you get to strengthen yourself, and you just get to own the amazing, incredible person that you are, and you get that everything that you're striving for is not only in service to you, but it is totally being a role model and an example for someone else who needs to see you doing that very thing or being that very person. So in my early days, I had moved to Los Angeles, and I was, you know, totally struggling to get my first client. I started tapping into desire. And I started learning that desires are really the fuel, which was very contradictory to me because I thought you had to work really hard to make money, and that the more you worked, the more money you would make, even though obviously that wasn't true because I was working 75 hours a week, living at home with my parents in Detroit, living off of $24,000 a year. But I still had that mentality, if I would just work harder, that I'd make more money. And then, so I started learning about desire. And if you let it be this easy, like the entrepreneurial path, I'm not going to say is super easy. Like anybody who's successful there has dug into their guts, has overcome more times than they can count. Thomas Edison knows 10,000 ways to not make a light bulb, right? But the self-manufactured pain is what's hard. If we would allow ourselves to use the right tool for the right task, then you'll see where there really can be more grace and flow. So I started learning about desire. And really getting that it was the desire that was going to lead to the manifestation. And when the desire was strong enough, and I didn't take myself out of the game too quickly, that's really how it happened. So I had, my first financial miracle came when I had a desire to be in a particular coaching program. And I'll share the story really quickly. I had $100 in my bank account, no known idea of where any client was going to be coming from next. I had moved to Los Angeles because I was no longer going to be consistently broke as a psychotherapist. I now got to be neurotically broke because I was charging $6,000 for packages, which sounds super sexy, but not when you sell one every 4 to 6 months. So I never knew when that next client was going to come in, and so I was at the end of a couple of client packages, had no website, no mailing list, any of that. And I went to a seminar, yes, and I got my big 3-ring binder, and they were talking about desire and visioning and really emotionalizing. And for some reason at that moment, I made a decision that changed my life forever. And I made the decision that I would never struggle again financially. And in making that decision, it freed me to not just make money, but to really have fun in life and up my quality of life and really spend time being in service rather than being self-obsessed about where my next client was going to come from. So anyways, I put $20 of gas to go to the seminar, so I was down to $80, and The Secret had just come out, so when I got to the seminar, it was a very big decision to make. You know, when you're considering investing 5% of your net worth into a DVD, it's a serious financial consideration, but I did buy The Secret, and so now I was down to $60 in my bank account, and there was a coaching program that was offered there, and it was a $17,000 program. And I not only made the decision that I would never struggle again financially, I also made the commitment to myself that I would never again say, I'd love to, but I don't have the money. And those two ways of believing robbed me of 12 years of my life, and I wasn't going to do that anymore. So of course, you know, make a declaration, and spiritual law would say that usually within about 24 hours you're going to have a chance to see if you're real or not. And so the $17,000 program gets offered, and so I go and I ask the woman if I can like put it on a payment plan or something, not that I knew where that was going to come from. I had completely shot my credit. I didn't really have people that I could ask for the money for. It's not that I didn't want to dip into my savings account. It didn't exist. And so I made that commitment to myself. And so I went up to her assistant and I filled in the order form with all 16 digits of my debit card with the expiration date, and I just looked at her and I said, give me 2 weeks before you run that card. And I took my 3-ring binder under one arm and The Secret under the other arm, and I walked around saying, I see myself, I didn't mention there was another $10,000 program that I wanted as well, and I had about $3,000 of bills. So I started, I see myself with $30,000 in 2 weeks. I see myself with $30,000 in 2 weeks. In 1 week, I see myself being coached by these coaches. I see myself having friends again and who are up to big things in the world. And so I see myself with $30,000 in 5 days, in 4 days. And my husband's like, what are we? And I'm like, nope, it's coming in, financial miracle. I see myself in 3 days and 2 days. And so the day before the deadline, one of my clients who was finishing his very last session, I was doing life coaching, because clearly at that point business coaching was a little above my pay rate. And we finished the life coaching pieces, and he said, so I think I'd like you to coach my sales team next. And I was like, oh God, I knew he owned a business, but I was like praying that during the entire 6-month package that would never come up, because I didn't want him to realize that I was an idiot in that area. And so I said, so what is it that you sell? And he said, basement waterproofing. Well, I'm sure that if, basement waterproofing directors come up, that I'm exactly the person that you would think is for you. And so I said, well, how many people are on your sales team? And he said, 10. Well, that was the extent of my sales ability at that time, and I didn't know that the first person who speaks loses or any of that. I just sat there because I didn't know what else to do. And he said, so what do I do, buy 10 of those $6,000 packages of yours? Oh, that's exactly what you do. And the next day he wired me $60,000, and I was able to sign up for my coaching packages. And then the abundance and the stories go on from there. But I find that any time that any of us really take a stand for putting ourselves in the game and follow those desires. They're there, they're real for a reason. You know, one thing led to another. I'll just share one more, like where these desires come from. Like, if I hadn't got in those coaching programs and started to up my frequency and work on myself and my business, like, I wouldn't have the business that I have today. Like, that, yes, that was for me, and so that I would have that, but think of all of the people that I'm now able to serve, and thousands of people, and in so many different programs, literally from around the world. And you know, as we develop ourselves and our frequency raises, yes, you know, in 3 years, that particular coach said, in 3 years, anyone can become a millionaire. And I was like, lady, I make 24 grand a year pretty consistently. I don't know what you're talking about. But I followed the tools, and I really stopped dismissing myself, and I put myself in the game. And yes, 3 years later, I did cross the 7-figure mark. And then the more I started following these desires, real quickly, so I mostly do women's empowerment work. There was a time when I was obsessed with going to Italy. It's all I could think about. All I wanted was the Amalfi Coast, the Isle of Capri, and shopping at Valentino's. But I was like, oh, Gina, you cannot tell anybody that. Like, you will never have a client again. Like, stop. You're supposed to be all about personal development, women's empowerment, and anything to help people grow businesses. So it's like, stop. Well, what you resist persists, so that didn't go away, and I finally gave into it. And I go to Italy, and I had a blast. He wasn't my husband at the time, but he is now, and we were like pigs in mud. I mean, it was a margarita pizza here, and it was, you know, the beach there, and it was shopping, and I was just in my bliss. And I shared a little bit in my newsletter on where I was, but I had this whole thing of like, oh God, if people see that I'm in Italy, like they're gonna think like I'm selling coaching programs to get to Italy. Like, I was just so not in my power about my desires and letting that be okay. And the little snippets that I put in the newsletter became the first mirroring back of what, for me and my tribe and my brand and my women really want from me. And they want lifestyle modeled, and they want modeled how to be a woman and how to be a successful entrepreneur, but how to do it in a really feminine way. And then I started getting emails from, well, I want to go to Italy too, but I want to go to Bali, and I want new curtains in my house, and like, you know, and this whole lifestyle piece that I've personally been obsessed with. I never thought that was part of my brand. I thought, well, I work on my business during the week, and I go and buy travel and leisure magazines on the weekend and host dinner parties on the weekend, and then I go do internet marketing during the week. And one of the reasons why this entrepreneurial path is so amazing is because it allows you to bring all of your loves together. And so today I now have a luxury lifestyle brand for women entrepreneurs called Divine Living, where I have programs that reach women all over the world, where I get to do the business work and the financial work and the coaching empowerment work that is so dear to my heart. We also do global live events, and I get to do cool things like this, be here with you, and I went to fashion school in Paris, and all of this is in my own clients too. Like, I'm getting like a lot of Atta girls, and thanks for the inspiration, and now I'm doing this too. So you have no idea when you really go for you what that awakens in someone else. It doesn't squelch anyone. It doesn't do anything but inspire their greatness as well. The more you're living your greatness, and the more you allow this unlimited vortex of the entrepreneurial path to catapult every dream you've ever had, know that that is, yes, in service to you, but it is so in service to so many others as well. And then you'll see how your service will contribute to whatever industry you're in. Recently, I'm very proud and glad to share that I had a dream of filling one of my programs through a video launch. And people said, first of all, said you can't sell high-end programs through video. You have to do live on-stage events. And I chose to not believe that. And then people said, well, if you're going to do a video launch, you have to do a 4-part video launch, which I've studied these, and they're really great. And there's many of my mentors use these. I checked in with me, and I was like, I just didn't feel the 4-part video launch in a studio for me. That wasn't my own truth or greatness or what I could really contribute to my clients or to the entrepreneurial world. So I got in my core and I decided to go to Paris, and I flew the rest of my team to Paris, and we shot 7 videos in Paris that just, and unscripted, just spoke from my heart about what the program was, why I was doing it, parts about my life. And you know, a few weeks later and in the close of the launch, we sold out of 200 spots of 28 women from around the world. That was in January, and then fast forward 9 months later, we did the same thing again. And so now people are calling and contacting me, well, how'd you do this launch? And so everyone from the entrepreneurial field to the women who I'm reaching, and I'm sharing all this to say that if you take success, take anything that you're seeing from me or other people that you look up to, and then make it your own, because you have a contribution in your own way that's just part of your greatness that we all need. People needed to see that, yeah, you can have super rockin' ideal clients come in off of a Facebook ad and buy a $10,000 program off of a video launch. Like, people were saying that couldn't be done. And so you know within you what can be done. Like, those whispers are there, and the more you stand by yourself and allow you to own all of your greatness in every way, even those areas that you think like, oh, well, that's not really part of my work, or that's not really going to be accepted, and people aren't going to like to hear that. You know, people like the truth. People like the realness. And if there's a part of your story that you think is in the shadow, well, let me tell you, there's not another person on the planet that couldn't relate to that. And if you think there's a part of your story that's not going to be well received, that might be true by like this many people. But all of the people who need to receive that part of your message, they are waiting. They are waiting. They need what you have. So really own your greatness. Let every part of this beautiful entrepreneurial community and path, from making unlimited amounts of wealth to fund these dreams and to be of service, to the technology, to the people and the customers that you're meant to work with, it is all there. It's all waiting for you. And I know I, for one, am going to be really excited to see what your unique greatness looks like. Thank you very much.
Sorry about that little alarm that went off. I didn't actually know that was happening. So again, once again, let's give it a big round for Gina.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'm proud to say this is not the end of the session. This is actually just the end of our continuous recording, because we're going to be publishing this talk online, so you'll all be able to enjoy this if ever you won't miss the part and want to watch it again. At this point, I think you wanted to open the floor, right?
Yes, I talk for a living, but I think that the most interesting conversations really happen from a dialogue and from questions that come up or musings or wonderings. So I'm totally opening the floor to any thoughts, comments, questions, yeah, buts, or what ifs anybody has.
Thanks a lot for coming to Malaysia. Welcome to Malaysia.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed your talk just now. My question is, you talk about vortex. So can you please elaborate on that?
Great question, great question. So he asked about talking about vortex. So admittedly, I'm a little more versed in areas of like food and fashion. But I'm going to use a physical analogy here, because biannually, I make it into a yoga class. And there was one time, because it's a biannual situation, I'm not always up on the schedule and who's teaching what. So I went in for my biannual appointment and found myself, unbeknownst to me, as warm-ups were already happening, that I was in the teacher training program. That morning, somebody moved the room or the teacher or the time or something, and so here I am with like all these major yoginis, and I'm like, oh God. Anyways, so the point is, you know that part in Downward Dog where they say walk or jump forward? Well, it's a walk forward for me, okay? It's a waddle, actually. But that day, because I was in a vortex of such high vibration, and I will spare you the actual demonstration in this moment, I literally felt my hips lift and my legs floated forward for the first and last time ever. But it was such a demonstration of being in the vortex of their greatness. It literally lifted me into what was, my body actually has the possibility of doing that. And so the vortex here that I was talking about is that I think because there can be such a shaming and shunning around greatness, right? And someone really owning their greatness, because I think it happens in a couple of things. Of course, there can be abuse of power things that happen with someone faking their greatness. There can also be people faking it till they're making it, so they're really insecure, but then they're acting great, and they're just working out their stuff, so I don't say that from a judgment place. So true greatness gets a really bad rap. And then for those of us who are also on a spiritual path, you're supposed to be humble, you're supposed to be, so it's like there's so much squelching of like being the great man or woman that you are created to be. So by being in this vortex of a community of people who are taking a stand and saying, I claim my greatness, not my arrogance and not my pseudo-humility, but like my greatness, that's the vortex that I believe by you all being here together will lift you into it quicker. Does that answer that for you? Great question. Yes? Hello?
Okay, good. First of all, you mentioned Kalamazoo, Michigan, right?
Kalamazoo, yes.
I've been there. I'm not American, but of all the places I've been there.
I'm sorry.
It was really cold to get stuck in the house anyways. So I wanted to ask you something more maybe tactical. You mentioned when you got this, the opportunity to coach 10 salesmen, that you were thinking like, that's not really what I know how to do, right? So I wanted to ask you how you dealt with this at that time, but also after that experience. It's, I guess, my assumption that it happens that you have clients who actually know as much as you do, or maybe even more, and the things they ask you, to help them with, you don't have the answer, right? So how do you deal, with people like this in situations like this?
Well, so there's a couple of things in there, and those are great questions. One, on the first part on how did I learn to coach basement waterproofing sales team, I learned really fast. So, like literally, like I learned about their stuff, and then I just started studying sales like a mad woman. So I started out like a quarter of a step ahead of them, and then it moved to a half a step, and then I was like a step ahead of them, and then the space grew. So that was still being in service. I didn't feel like I wasn't not up for it in that sense. For other people, if they come to, at this point I have been between being a psychotherapist and a coach for the past 15 years. I have a lot of people come to me even today, and if they ask me a question I don't know how to handle it, I will just tell them that's not my area of expertise. I remember one time I was working with this like really high profile like commercial real estate dude, and this was when I was a therapist, and he asked me to analyze one of his psychological tests, and I did what I knew to do, and then he asked me a question about it. I didn't have the answer, and I said, hold on a second, let me go call I said, let me make a phone call. He goes, what are you doing? And I said, I need to get the answer to that question for you. He's like, you don't know? And I said, no. And he looked at me and he said, I have so much more respect for you right now. So I think that when you tell people the truth, first of all, anyone can sort of feel it if you're fumbling your way through. And something particularly on behalf of the coaching industry, like sometimes clients misappropriate this and sometimes coaches misappropriate it, but it's not in place of God. Like, you don't have to know everything, and you don't have to be everything. As any entrepreneur, you don't have to be all. You be great at what you're great at, and let people know when you recommend that they ask someone else.
Hi, Gina.
Hi.
Carpe.
Thanks for being here today in Mindvalley. What you just said, I totally resonate with it because I'm also a certified coach, and I'm 25 this year. So I assume you might know that the challenges that a young coach face, because I guess I'm probably one of the youngest coach in the whole Asia. At the age of 23, I got certified, and that's the biggest challenge that I'm facing right now. It's that maybe you can share experiences. So what is that breakthrough that allows you to go into the industry and actually getting high-paying clients, or actually even getting people to be willing to take up coaching? Because like for me, right now, the challenge I'm facing is that it's not even easy to get into the industry. People say things like, you are too young, what do you know? Or, all these kind of limiting beliefs and myth and about coaching and stuff. So maybe you can share with me what was your experience?
Sure. What's your area of specialty? Who's your ideal client?
Life coaching and performance coaching.
Performance, that's like actors or musicians?
No,
or?
success. Performance basically in workplace.
Oh, performance. Okay, got it. So I have a number of things to share. First of all, congratulations for being a coach at the age that you are. There is nowhere else you're supposed to be, and there's no other age that you're supposed to be right now. So I'll just use my own vocabulary, God, Spirit, Universe, but like the God I serve isn't up there like, oh, geez, I'd really like to use him, but he's only 25 right now. My hands are tied. Okay, you clearly have a passion. So therefore you have a purpose to do this and to do this now. There's a couple things that I would invite you to shift your mindset around. One is I'm presuming you've read all the great books on wealth consciousness and studied them. Science of Getting Rich, Think and Grow Rich, The Game of Life, How to Play It, Conscious Language. Okay? So I would invite you to revisit all of them for this reason. I mean, I read them all still, but for this reason, if you actually program your being to say that it is super easy to break into the coaching industry and that people flock to a 25-year-old coach and are more than willing to pay the top rate or the rate that you feel good about commanding, then that will be your reality. So if you have a belief that it's hard, that people won't take you seriously because of your age or any of that, then that's what you're creating. And I personally can share with you, I happen to have a Malaysian client who is a 21, actually she just turned 22, but she's been with me since she's about 20, and she does $10,000 weeks as a coach. I could introduce you to her. She's also really beautiful. I don't know if she's taken or not, but. Oh, no, you're okay. So, okay. Oh, he's taken. Okay, great. Okay, great. But no, I have many coaches in my programs who are in their 20s and they are just kicking it. $17,000 months, $20,000 months, $27,000 months. Now they've worked on their mindset and they've certainly set up their infrastructure and they've got their marketing down. But it's a hurting world. And there's 7 billion people on the planet. I'm sure that usually a coach isn't even looking for more than 10, maybe 20 clients at one time. There are 20 people in this world who need your passion and your insight and the way that you deliver your message, like right now. Like there are 10 companies right now who are totally struggling in their workplace where their vision isn't getting out in the world and people are miserable because they don't know what you know. And believe me, they don't care how old you are, they care if you can help them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Who's next?
Hi, Gina.
Hello.
Thank you for the talk. Very inspiring.
You're welcome.
What I actually wanted to ask you is, I completely agree with you when you say about greatness and that every single person, there's no identical person in the world to you when you have a message to share and all that. However, what I see is that although everybody has their own greatness, it's just something that differentiates those who actually make it through. Like I see, for example, when you said, I want to make 7 videos, and I don't care what everybody says, and just do it, and it works. in comparison to somebody else who said the same thing and it doesn't work. So what is that thing that differentiates you and everybody who truly believe in their desires and follow that, and it actually works, they make money, they spread the message, in comparison to others that it just doesn't work? I'm just trying to figure it out, and what's your thoughts on that?
Thank you. This is such an important element that you're bringing up. And first of all, in all due respect, I'm sure there's many elements. There could be many possible factors. A lot of people are doing a lot of the work, and they're not really doing the mindset stuff, even though they say they've read the books. And, so there can be a lot of things. The biggest core piece that I would say that I've seen be the difference is what I call the must factor. And so a plane is off track 90% of the time, and so it's course correcting 90% of the time. And I can certainly say for me that the same has happened. Yes, I created 7 videos, and yes, the last thing that you're hearing is that I sold out 200 spaces, but you're not hearing what I did to make sure that happened. And so one thing that I don't do and don't tolerate and take a stand for within myself and in my team is if we make a decision to do something, we're doing it to the fullest no matter what, no matter what. And I think a lot of people do get discouraged and they give up or they think that it's not going to happen, and especially in the 11th hour. Like the story that I just shared, I could have very easily been sitting there saying, oh my gosh, it's the day before, there's no way I'm going to make $17,000 in the next 24 hours. And so when you read enough of these wealth consciousness books, you really get the 11th hour miracles. And so I've trained my body to stay the course to the very end. And usually that's where, for anyone who's read Think and Grow Rich, it's the 3 feet from the gold piece. And the other thing, I could tell you story after story after story where I had met temporary failure. And I did not allow it to take place. I'm glad to share even transparently, even in our last launch, we were in our last 5 days, and we were at, about 150 spaces sold. So we'd basically done a whole launch. We're in the last week, and anyone else would be like, Gina, you're not going to sell 50 spots in the last week. And I was like, team, what do we need to do? Everybody, so we do the mindset pieces, we do the action pieces. I wasn't we'll probably get another 10. That's good enough for now. I don't ever let that happen. So it's this must factor, my life depends on it. When I go after it, that I see other people fall prey to the anywhere from that, gee, that'd be nice, to I really, 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 really want it. And I say, if wanting were enough, we'd all be skinny billionaires by now. So it's really shifting it into the must, this must happen is, I think, the biggest piece. Who's next? Great questions.
Hi, Gina. My name is Miriam.
Hi.
My question is about when you were having your talk and you were talking about how growing up you wanted to go to Boston College, but instead you ended up going to another college. I think that some of these decisions are influenced when we're young, coming from family or people that are in our close circle. And that resonated with me because now I'm in Mindvalley working here, and sometimes when I go home back, the people that I grew up with or my family are still in a different frequency. And sometimes I have these conversations when they're like, but there's no money for that, or we're never gonna do this. And how do you face that yourself? I would love to know, what's your relationship now with these people, especially family?
Great question. Honestly, a lot of my relationships have shifted in terms of either who my core people were, people who I don't even speak to anymore, not necessarily for bad circumstances, but just spiraled out of each other's lives, to we talk once or twice a year. Because I found that when you're going for what you're really up for, the universe keeps just bringing you the next most amazing person. And this isn't about social climbing or gold digging. It's just literally I think miracles come in the form of people, right? And so if you're going for whatever your purpose is, then someone's going to be brought into your life, whether it's a friend or a colleague or a teacher or a mentor, and then that's where you spend your time and your energy. And so I don't find that it's lonely at the top. I find that I actually have, I'm not even going to say better quality friends today than ever, because the friends that I had when I was in a different place were just a mirror of me. I was like that too. And so that's the friend circle. The family piece, that's about boundaries. I have found that there's a couple of things. One, you can share to a degree, but this is an area that I find that evangelism is very unsexy. Like, nobody wants anything pushed on them, even if it's for their own good. Like, you go and you read a book, you come to a talk like this, and you're like, oh my gosh, Dad, you can do it, Mom, you can be great, or what your siblings, etc. They have those choices, and not everyone makes the choice that you do, and raises their hand and says yes to believing something different. And I think that they have a right to those choices. So with some family members, I've chosen to have different conversations with. Some of them I just don't talk about this kind of thing with, or others I just don't stay with that long. They do say if you think you're enlightened, go home for the holidays.
Hi Gina, I have a question. So far you have referred to a lot of the big things that have happened and the big accomplishments that you made, but also I know that there's a lot of other small things that happen. So I'm very curious to know, what are your routines? What are those things that you do for yourself and for your business, like every day? Like those things that you would religiously do and pay attention to? Because I don't know, I have feeling sometimes those things add up and really show up to achieve greatness. So I'm curious about that.
Very cool, very cool. Well, in the early days and even now, I'm a really big journaler. It's how I connect with myself, and there's something about getting it down on the page and taking that time for me. So there's a real grounding that I get and a real clarity that I get from journaling. Everything from like, how am I going to work with my team? And this was when my team was like me, the dining room table, and one assistant that I got off of Craigslist, showing up kind of thing. But I took that very seriously. My first virtual assistant, because I had the wealth consciousness of a peanut, I hired her for 15 minutes a week. But during that journaling time, I would figure out what I was going to do. You know how hard it is to figure out how to delegate 15 minutes? But by the end of that year, I had 4 full-time people working for my company, so we got to start somewhere. So journaling, meditation. I think another thing that I take for granted that I don't hear a lot of other people do, I'm really big on 8 to 9 hours of sleep. Like, I have never been sleep deprived in the entire history of my company. There were like 2 live events that I didn't think I was going to fill, and there were like a couple of sleepless nights then, but like I'm really big in self-care, not in the yoga kind of way, but in really getting good sleep and a good dinner. I do green drinks every now and again. So I would say the computer goes off like an hour earlier, it seems like every year. Like at first it was like 8 o'clock, then it was 7:30, 7, like now we're sort of like at 5:30. It's like, we live in California. It's like, isn't it time to close the computer? So we're really good about being really present at work, and then really having time without technology in that as well. But I think I always get coaching myself, so I'm never without my own mentors and experts and specialists. And then probably the biggest muscle that I've developed is this saying yes to my desires, which usually comes in the form of taking a stand for the and. So much of it is, do you want this or that? And usually when there's any kind of like internal conflict, then it's both. So getting used to saying yes to that and treating myself well in that sense. Shutting down, oh, that's just for divas and that kind of stuff, but then really getting, no, this is for people who are at a high vibration, and that's who I'm choosing to be. So allowing myself to say yes to what my true desires are. Mhm.
Hi Gina, my name is Azwa.
Nice to meet you.
I want to know what actually gives you the power to decide from when you're starting out and moving to the message that now this is it, I'm going to move to 6,000 to buy this kind of thing. Okay.
Great question. So to me, that's very connected to my intuition. And especially when you start to get good at this stuff, right? Like when you start to grow your business, you start to grow your list, and you can start to see how you can make money. The unit, like that's not good enough anymore. Like, you know, like maybe in 1984 or something, right? But like now, like the universe really wants more for us. So it's not just doing something because we can, because we're good at it, or it'll make money. It's got to really be like that full, passionate, like, yes. And so I will really check in on that. Like, is this something that I want to do? Is this a real yes? And because I also know myself, I follow through to the end no matter what. And I think that because I've trained myself to do that, I take my decisions, I don't want to say seriously, but substantively. And because I know that if I start something, I'm not going to be like, I'm getting bored, I'm going to quit this. Like, I follow it through no matter what. So it's got to be something that really brings me joy. So there's a couple of questions that I ask myself. The one next to my computer is who else can do this? Because in terms of really growing and expanding yourself, to just see do only what you love and what you must do, and delegate the rest. And then I'll also ask the question, if I had $10 million in the bank, would I still move forward with this project? Because it's kind of amazing what that exercise will do within you. So like, wow, what would that feel like to have $10 million in the bank? So for me, it cleans up, am I doing this to make the money, or am I doing this because I'm really passionate about it? And then the other question I ask, is this the most joyful way to accomplish whatever the desire is? So it's like, if I want to empower women, of all the programs that I could do in the world, is this the most joyful way to do that? If I want to make a certain amount of money, is this the most joyful way to do that? So those are the questions I ask myself to make sure that I'm rock solid with my decision.
All right, we're going to ask one more question after I get a chance to ask mine, which is actually to know, so we're all here in this room and this is all amazing, and I want to know what would be the next step for anybody who's really inspired by this and wants to keep in touch with you.
Go to GinaDeVee.com. I think that's going to be the best place to stay in touch. For those of you who are Facebook fanatics, you can go to /Gina DeVee as well. GinaDeVee.com will get you on my list. You'll see the, not exactly positive what's there right now, but I think you'll see that 7-part video series potentially. So you can like take a look at that and study that just from even an entrepreneurial perspective, but that will definitely get you on the list.
One more question.
Hi Gina. I don't know if you know me or not, but I'm Kiel.
I
I'm
know.
in the academy now.
Yes.
And my question is more personal in the sense that, for example, I'm a new coach and I wanted to sell individual coaching packages. In terms of the marketing plan, what I've seen in group coaching programs is that normally you have like a start date, you have to sign up for this certain period of time before, otherwise you're going to lose out, you don't get a discount kind of thing. But in an individual coaching program, how did you start off before launching the group coaching program, and was there like a due date that you gave to people to sign up?
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you a question. Does it feel like you're jumping a little ahead of yourself right now?
A little bit.
Uh-huh. What does that feel like inside you?
It feels a little bit that I'm jumping ahead of me, but I think by the time that I have set in mind, I will be able to launch the coaching that I have in mind.
Okay. So it's a most excellent justification. But what I'm going to support, what does it feel like inside? Does it feel like you're rushing it, like it's jumping a little ahead?
Well, there's no specific date that I was going to do this, but I guess for the future reference, if I was going to do this in February, probably, then...
I just mean even like the question that you're asking. Because here's what I'm intuiting a little bit, and then you'll tell me if this is true or not. So I love the drive, love the passion, like it's super exciting to be a new coach, and every new coach just wants to be working with clients and wants their marketing all set up and wants to be doing their thing. And what I'm wondering is there some other form of preparation for you that would have you like really be in your greatness that much more right now? Like, sure, we can talk marketing plans and we can talk about start dates and group versus individual and all that, but I feel like for you, it's feeling a little rushed, and I'm wondering, is there something else that would really support you right now, right here where you're at? Does that resonate?
Yeah.
In what way?
Well, getting support. So yeah, that was what I was actually thinking for the whole day today. Just reaching out to Rebecca and Megan. So yeah.
Okay. So just feel what that's like in your body, because for everyone to know, those dreams are there and they will be manifested. They will actually be manifested more thoroughly when you have given yourself everything that you need. And so there's a time for everything and there's a season for everything. And so when you've given to yourself and gotten whatever support or taken care of whatever emotional nurturing or just whatever's going on in anybody's life at any time, the marketing stuff, that will come and that becomes easier. It becomes very hard when we put that before like the true desire. When the true desire is, I'd like some support right now, then it kind of jumbles and messes things up. So you can just feel in your body if there's like some tightness or if there's real expansion, then you'll know, like, I think there's a line in the Course in Miracles that says, the Holy Spirit knows when your rent is due. So for any of us that have anxiety about like either bringing in money or we think that we've got to like do something by a certain time, the right time, it all happened in the right timing. So the more you can be where you're at right now, it's amazing the difference even 24 hours can make sometimes, especially when it comes to emotional issues. But you know, be where you're at right now, be in your greatness today, and when it's time for you to do marketing, you'll know and you'll rock it out.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Jen.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It was so fantastic to be here.